Intellectual property from a selling perspective is very important. I'll give you an example. We were acting for a venture capital trust a few months ago who were buying a well-known beauty company in the UK. That company had a very distinctive logo that was designed by an external consultant. If it was designed by an employee, that logo would have belonged to the company, but it was designed by an external consultant. She registered it in her name, she owned the copyright to that trademark. When the company was being bought, she was in a very strong position because the company, the buyer, our client, needed the trademark. It was a really well-known brand. And she could basically demand any price she wanted for that trademark. If they had dealt with it maybe 1 month or 2 months earlier, she would have just been paid what her fees, usual fees under the consultancy agreement. So a note on, for buyers, you have to make sure that the company itself does own its intellectual property and not some external consultant. And for sellers, make sure that you own it in your company name, because intellectual property is one of the most valuable assets for any business out there today.
What's their management team like? Well, do they have a management team, or is the business run by the owner? Which makes it high risk, because if you've got an owner-reliant business, that's like buying a car without an engine. Because the one thing you're not buying is the owner, usually. They want to take your money and do something else in life. So they're not staying. So you need to try and find out. They won't necessarily give you this information too readily, but how many hours a week do they work? Who makes the decisions on hiring and firing? Who holds the key relationships with clients and suppliers? Who releases the back payments? Who looks at the figures? Who's the kind of FD, if there isn't an FD? Who looks after the numbers? If the answer to those questions is the current shareholder owner, that's a high risk investment.
You've obviously all heard about and maybe felt the repercussions yourselves of the 2008 financial meltdown. Now, generally speaking, before 2008, it was maybe not easy, but definitely easier than now to walk into your local branch office, describe a business idea that you had to them, or if you already have a business, to go in and explain what you were doing and get them to lend you money. Now, today, it's very often the perception that banks don't lend anymore, that debt is the cause of the financial crisis, and also quite a lot of SMEs, given how they were treated by their banks during the crisis, are now scared of taking on debt funding. And obviously, there's a lot of different actors and financial institutions out there who've picked up on this. So as a consequence of that, we now have a very large, what we call alternative finance sector in the UK. So basically that means that individuals, different parts of financial institutions and banks have set up alternatives to banks. So basically that means that instead of you only thinking about kind of the main 4 clearing banks in the UK, so HSBC, RBS, Barclays, NatWest, as your source of funding when you want to go and borrow money, there are plenty more available out there.